This trimester has been filled with so many things. We felt the baby move. I had my first bout of heartburn. I'm finally leaking colostrum. We had our anatomy scan, and we have started to actually plan for baby. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Birth Lounge podcast. All right, you guys, before I dive into how the second trimester has treated me, I wanted to give you a little heads up of a big change that is coming your way soon. And that is a price bump in the Birth Lounge membership. On September 1, we are actually increasing the price to the membership for the Birth Lounge because we have totally revamped it. There are new courses, there are new videos, we have redone the modules, we have additional guests. You have modules from the first trimester in pregnancy all the way through your baby's first year. We're stepping you through every single thing that you need to know. If you didn't know, you're going to encounter more than 200 choices in your labor and delivery process. And my goal is to help you not only understand what those things are, but understand your options around each scenario. I want you to know the pros and the cons, the risk and the benefits, alternatives that you can discuss with your care team, and then how do you confidently navigate each of those decision-making points while you're in labor. Now, a lot of this happens when you're still pregnant, so we are going to teach this to you, obviously, while you are pregnant, so that you can go into your prenatals informed and confident and with a list of questions that you are ready to discuss, so that when you do only have 8 to 10 minutes with your provider, those 8 to 10 minutes are efficient, effective, and used wisely. One other big change that is happening to the membership is we are adding a level of support. So currently you can join as a monthly member, which is a cancel anytime, no commitment. You can join for 1 month or 1,000 months, or you have the option to join as a lifetime member. Starting September 1, we're going to add one additional membership option, which is an annual option for 12 months. So you really have the flexibility to choose whatever floats your boat based on where you are in pregnancy. Let me break down a little bit of who would be best for each membership option. If you are someone who is later in your pregnancy and you don't think that you want a lot of help in postpartum, I would go for that monthly option. You're going to save some money. You're going to get access to most of the information in there for free, and then you can cancel whenever you are done with your membership. If you go with an annual membership, this is perfect for someone who may just be looking to have one child, who may be on their last child, and you don't mind adding on additional courses as you need them. However, if you are someone who is having your first baby, or you know that you're going to have other babies, or you're looking for a one-stop shop childbirth education that includes every single thing that you need to have your baby informed and confidently, I would highly suggest you go with the lifetime membership. A couple of things that you get in the lifetime that you don't get in the monthly and the annual option are going to be absolutely free access to all of our other courses. The courses that are available today, like our newborn sleep guide, our secret sauce to pushing, and our dad days course, plus any additional courses courses that we ever add for the duration of the life of the Birth Lounge. And let me let you in on a little secret. We have another course launching this fall, and it may or may not have to do with pushing out a big baby. As a lifetime member, you also get a hand-curated birth box that I have put together based on my favorite things for labor and delivery and for postpartum. So it's going to include things like an authentic rebozo that's hand-woven in Mexico and shipped to us, a TENS unit for pain relief, some self-care items like a face roller and under-eye jellies, plus the softest fuzzy socks you've ever felt in your life. In addition to that, you're going to find some things for postpartum, like ice packs for your breast, herbal teas to help improve and establish and maintain your milk supply, plus some fun goodies for your baby's health, like a probiotic, vitamin D drops, and sometimes we even include some fun things like gas drops. And honestly, those are just the basics. Every single box is jam-packed with my favorite tools and is worth over $120, and it's shipped directly to your front door. Also, in addition to all of that, you get a free birth plan audit where you can send your birth plan to me and my team. We will look over it, give you tips and tricks, give you some feedback, and help you improve your birth plan to make it absolutely stellar so that you can achieve your best birth possible. And don't worry, if you do join as a monthly or an annual member, you still have access to those additional courses. You just have to add them on as an add-on. You can purchase a birth box as well, and you can purchase that birth plan audit. But if you join as a lifetime member, not only do you get all of those bells and whistles, all of those goodies already included, but you are truly a lifetime member. So any updates, any additional data, any new modules, and any new courses that we launch, you will get automatically for free. Over the last 7 years, we have helped thousands of parents around the world achieve their best birth possible. And I want that for you as well. I wanted to give you a little heads up before we raise the price so that you can get in at the price that it is now and take advantage of all of our wonderful information and our evidence-based education so that you can truly have a birth that you love. Visit thebirthlounge.com/join to join now, and make sure that you do this before September 1, before the price increases. That's thebirthlounge.com/join. Okay, are you ready to hear how the second trimester has gone for me? This trimester has been filled with so many things. We felt the baby move. I had my first bout of heartburn. I'm finally leaking colostrum. We had our anatomy scan, and we have started to actually plan for baby. I keep joking with everybody in my life that I knew that I would be kind of a chill pregnant lady, but I didn't realize I would be just this chill. As I'm rounding out the second trimester, we really don't have that much stuff checked off of our list. We don't have a nursery. We don't have a completed registry. We don't have a planned baby shower, and I don't have much baby gear. I literally just have a baby in my belly. But I guess at the end of the day, all you really need is a place to safely lay your baby, some boobs to feed your baby, and a couple of diapers. One of the most fun things that we encountered or experienced in this trimester was that we finally got to feel our baby move. Now, if you remember from my first trimester update podcast episode, I shared with you that I do in fact have an anterior placenta, which means that my placenta is on the front of my belly instead of where they generally are, which is on the back part of your body, closer to your spine rather than up against your belly button. And fun fact, mine is actually off to the side a little bit, so it's not directly in front of my belly button. If you find your belly button and then you go off to the side 2 or 3 inches, that is where mine is. So at around 15 weeks pregnant, 17 on paper, I felt the baby move for the first time. And it felt like a little bloop, 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 bloop. It felt like a little electrical shock, like popcorn was popping inside of me almost. And I caught it on video. I felt it. And then I immediately thought, oh my gosh, this is a moment that I want to save for the rest of my life. I want to always be able to remember and revisit exactly what I felt in this moment and to relive this excitement when I think about this moment. And so I got out my camera really quick and I just recorded how happy I was and what I was feeling and the total excitement that was just rushed over me. And to be honest, I watch that video probably once a week. I love it so much, and it's such a fun video to just relish in the moment of feeling my baby for the first time. Now, this was all internal. There was no external movements. You couldn't see the baby, and of course, Mr. HeHe at that point also wasn't able to feel. It was just a special moment between me and my baby. Now, about a month later, at 19 weeks pregnant, 21 on paper, we did feel the baby move on the outside. And I describe it as like a shark bumping into the bottom of a boat. It was like a bump, like a thud in the night, if you will. And we were actually out to dinner for Father's Day, and I felt it. I immediately grabbed his hand, put his hand on my belly, and the baby did it a couple more times, and it was just the sweetest moment. Like, almost like our baby was saying, hi, Dad, happy Father's Day, like happy first Father's Day. You're a real dad. This is so fun. And it was just a really, really special moment. If you remember what it was like to feel your baby, or you remember when you felt your baby for the first time, either drop it under the show notes. I'd love to relish in this special moment with you, or you can find my video on Instagram and come and comment at what gestational point did you feel your baby first. I think a lot of it has to do with whether you have an anterior placenta or a posterior placenta, which anterior is in the front, posterior is in the back. And a lot of times when you have that anterior placenta on the front, it can make those movements not only a little muted, but they might come a little later in pregnancy. So if you're out there listening and you have a placenta that is in fact on the front of your belly, then I wouldn't be too concerned if you're not feeling your baby as early as friends or family that have a posterior placenta. So weight gain is something that you guys are consistently asking me about. And so I thought I would give you 2 points of where I did agree to have my weight checked. I don't routinely step on a scale at my house or in my regular everyday life. And checking my body weight was never part of my health routine pre-pregnancy. However, I do know that it is a good idea to keep up with your weight gain in pregnancy for a couple of different reasons. Number one, if we're not gaining enough weight in pregnancy, it could lead to some unwanted outcomes in our baby, like fetal growth restriction or a baby that is small for gestational age, low birth weight, preterm labor, especially if we're not getting the right nutrients like enough protein every day. On the opposite end of that spectrum, gaining too much weight can also cause some unwanted outcomes and or could be an indicator that your body is asking for additional help. So not only are we growing a baby and we've got all this additional blood, we also have the weight of the placenta. So weight gain is normal, but if you see that your weight jumps up drastically in a very short period of time, it could be an indicator of things like preeclampsia, or that your baby is actually growing really, really fast, which might be an indicator of gestational diabetes. Also, before I tell you about my own personal weight gain, I want to remind you that everyone's body is really different. Not only do we have different body composites and we all start at a different starting place, but depending on our DNA and our partner's DNA and what our individual babies and bodies need during pregnancy, all of our weight gain is going to be a little different. So at 19 weeks, I had gained 13 pounds, and at 27 weeks, I had gained 23 pounds. Now, ACOG says that weight gain is dependent on your BMI before pregnancy, and that in your first 12 weeks, so the first trimester, you may actually not gain any weight at all, or you could gain up to 5 pounds. Beyond that, in your second and third trimester, they suggest that if you were at a healthy weight pre-pregnancy, that you should be gaining anywhere from a half to a whole pound per week. On the topic of weight gain, my body has definitely started to expand, which is obvious, right? We're like growing a baby here, and I've really chosen to embrace it. I know that body stuff is really sensitive and it's tricky, and we all have different histories with our bodies and the way that they have grown and expanded over the years. But I have tried to really embrace the fact that just because I'm having to buy bigger clothes and invest in new pieces of clothing, it is actually a really positive thing. For me, instead of thinking about it as like, oh no, I'm getting so big, I try to remind myself that it is a beautiful reminder that my body is actually working just as expected, and that I want my body to expand. It's accommodating my baby's growth, and my body is healthy. It is a good indicator that my pregnancy is healthy, and I'm grateful for this opportunity and to allow my baby to grow and my body to expand. This includes my boobs. You guys, my boobs have gotten so big compared to where they were pre-pregnancy, and it is just really shocking. I went into this pregnancy really hoping and having the goal of not having to buy new clothes. I already wore really kind of loose clothes. I really kind of tend to have this boho vibe, and I love athleisure wear, but that has proven to be absolutely impossible. Not only has my belly began to crest above the belly button, which if you've ever been pregnant before or you're currently pregnant in the first trimester, you probably, when you look down, it's just like right around your belly button and underneath it to your pubic bone. You've got like this cute little baby bump, this little pouch. Well, post like 15, 16, 17 weeks pregnant, so 17, 18, 19 weeks on paper, my belly really started to get round from the bottom of my breast, kind of like where my rib cage is, all the way to the top of my belly button. And so now it's like this really nice round little basketball sitting on my torso, which has also led me to getting a pregnancy pillow because I need a little bit more support at night to prop up my belly. But instead of going with a traditional pregnancy pillow, one of those C pillows that kind of wraps around your whole body underneath your shoulder and your neck, down the front of your belly or down your back, and then wraps through your legs, I actually decided to go with a wedge pillow, which I made a video about on social media. So you can scroll back and find that. You can go to Tranquility by HeHe. All of my Instagram and my TikToks are under Tranquility by HeHe. And I made a video. I actually went with a wedge pillow that has a wedge on either side. And it is actually filled with beads, much like a bean bag would be. So it's not foam. It's not firm. It contours to my body. And there's a wedge on either side. I am a side sleeper. I was a belly sleeper pre-pregnancy, so no matter which side I flip to, whether it's on the left or the right, I have that belly support. And then on top of that, I just stack up pillows between my knees. It started out as one pillow, and now that I have started to get towards the later part of the second trimester, I am actually starting to use two pillows in between my knees to help keep my hips nice and open. The other trick that I learned from my PFPT and my chiropractor, which has been a total game changer, is to get a really fluffy and like firm, big pillow and put it against my chest so that my top shoulder, when I'm laying on my side, my top shoulder doesn't actually come over and put any sort of strain or pressure on my mid or lower back. So I'm pretty much completely stacked, aside from my top hip is a little bit rolled towards the bed, which means my bottom hip that is against the bed is a little bit out from the top hip. So my top hip is rolled towards the bed and my bottom hip is kind of kicked out just a little bit. Then I have the wedge pillow under my belly and I have that big pillow against my chest to help keep my upper body stacked. This has allowed me to get such good sleep at night, and I'm really lucky that I'm still able to sleep fully through the night, and I'm still not waking up to pee actually, which is quite surprising because I am drinking so much water during the day. If you follow me on social media, you know that I also have been using electrolytes my entire pregnancy, but I recently have noticed a little bit of light swelling. So I made the switch from a salt-based electrolyte, which is the powders that I just add to my water, to a plant-based electrolyte, which I have chosen coconut water, and I just add it to my water every morning. I also have been adding trace mineral drops. You can get those online. And I have started to do lymphatic drainage. So for me, what this looks like is just simple self-massage on my legs, a little bit of dry brushing, and then at the end of each day, I will put my legs up the wall to help the lymphatic drainage in my legs actually drain. I'm also being really mindful with my movement to make sure that I am moving enough during the day so that I don't have any sort of pooling, and I'm getting off my feet. So at least once a day, I do get supine, which just means laying flat for about 20 to 30 minutes so that my feet don't always have to be underneath me. Some fun cravings that I'm having that I'm absolutely giving into are milkshakes and chocolate milk, but the chocolate milk has to be ice cold. So I will make up the chocolate milk and then I'll stick it in the freezer until the top kind of crystallizes, and then OMG, mwah, it is the chef's kiss. It's so yummy and it just hits the spot every single time. At the end of the first trimester, I told you guys that I actually changed to a powdered prenatal. I use the Kneaded brand, which you can use the code HeHe, HeHe, in all caps, code HeHe, HeHe, to grab some percentage off of your first order on Kneaded. But I changed to their prenatal that is the powder form because the pills were just too much. Not only were they really hard for me to get down because they were so stinky, but there were 8 of them a day, and I just found it just like so much mental load. I found that I was gagging. I felt like I was really resistant, and so it would make me not want to take my prenatals, which obviously is not good. So I changed to the powdered form. I actually genuinely love the taste, and what I was going to tell you is that I do add it to my chocolate milk, and then I also add Just Ingredients protein powder, which I do have a code for Just Ingredients too. It's in all caps, Tranquility by HeHe, and you can save some money there as well. So I will make up that chocolate milk. I will add my chocolate protein powder. I will add my powdered prenatal, and then, oh my God, it's just really, really yummy. So not only is it a great way for me to satisfy that craving, it's a great way for me to get in my prenatal, and it's a big boost of protein. One controversial thing that I've added back into my routine in this second trimester is I have gotten back into hot yoga and saunaing. Now, this this is something that both of these things were part of my health routine for years leading up to getting pregnant. So not only was I very comfortable in both of these settings, in both the sauna and in hot yoga classes, but I also had conditioned my body to be really used to these two settings as well. If you are sitting there thinking, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be in hot places like the sauna when you're pregnant, I want to introduce you to the Swedish approach, actually. So in the culture in Sweden, most people actually have either really good access within their community to a sauna, or what you more commonly find is people actually have saunas in their home. It is very much part of their health culture in Sweden. And the Swedish culture actually follows an approach that they sauna throughout the entire pregnancy, including the first trimester. Now, for me, I chose to sit out the first trimester, and not for any other reason than my gut instinct just said, why don't you wait? And I actually didn't have any qualms about it. And so it felt really good and easy and organic for me to sit out in the first trimester of the sauna and hot yoga classes. However, now that I'm back in the second trimester, I am super stoked that I was able to get back into my routine. A couple of accommodations that I am making is obviously in any sort of, fitness class, especially when heat is involved, you want to be making sure that you are making pregnancy safe and pregnancy specific modifications, which I am, with the help of the facilitator of the classes, plus my functional movement therapist and my PFPT, which is a pelvic floor physical therapist. Everyone has given me different modifications and various moves. So kind of no matter what pops up in the class, I know how to modify them. I'm also making sure that my yoga mat is right by the door, just in case I do get overheated, I start to feel nauseous, I start to feel like I need a breather, or I start to be short of breath, I start to get lightheaded. Any symptoms that would indicate my body is not doing well in the heat, I have access to quickly and easily step out. Luckily, it hasn't happened so far because I think that my body was so used to doing heated exercises pre-pregnancy, but should that arise in any point, I have the access to easily step out. The second thing is, when it comes to a sauna, I have chosen to only use a sauna where I have direct control over how hot the sauna is. So I want to make sure that not only is the sauna not getting too hot, but I have also modified the amount of time that I am spending in the sauna. So I used to sit in the sauna for 20 or 30 minutes straight through. I would go in there, work up a good sweat, and that would be my sauna time. Now I am lessening the temperature. So we're lowering that to make sure that it's not quite as hot. And I'm doing 5 to 6 minute increments. I will come out for 10 to 12 minutes, go back in for another 5 to 6 minutes, come out for 10 to 12 minutes, and do a final session of 5 to 6 minutes. Now, I'm applying the same kind of boundaries around sauna use. It hasn't happened so far, but if I were to feel nauseous, shortness of breath, lightheadedness, or like I was overheating, I would obviously step out and probably not go back in. However, because it was a part of my routine for years before I got pregnant, I think my body has just been really used to it. And to be completely honest, I feel amazing while I'm in the sauna and afterwards. The other thing that I want to be really mindful to remind you of is, if you are going to do exercises, activities, things like this that are going to cause you to sweat a lot, Do not forget to be extra hydrated, and we need to replace that sodium that you're losing through your sweat with electrolytes. And then I obviously just talked about plant-based versus salt-based electrolytes. I do still salt my food even in pregnancy, which I did consider that when I started to have that light swelling. I started to think that maybe the salt-based electrolytes were adding too much sodium to my body when I was also eating food that was salted. And I'm not talking about loads of salt. I don't like overly salt my food. But because I add salt to my food and I love it and I don't want to give that up, I did decide to go with that plant-based electrolyte. So just make sure that if you're doing any sort of exercise, which you absolutely should be, ACOG does recommend 30 minutes per day, 5 days a week, or 3 days a week, 50 minutes of moderate exercise, getting that heart rate up and starting to get that light sweat so that we can really work on not only your strength and endurance, but your cardiac function as well. Just make sure that you are also really hydrating yourself and replacing your electrolytes that you're losing through sweating. Something that's super fun that we did in this trimester was we finally hired a home birth midwife. I talked to you in the last episode about my first trimester update that we had put together a short list of midwives that we were going to interview. We were going through their credentials. We were putting together a list of questions that we were going to ask, and we were starting the interview process. And now I'm so excited to say that we have settled on someone and we have hired her and her team, and we love them so much. In our first visit with her, they actually spent more than 2 hours at our house. Not only did we feel so loved, but it was also so casual. It was relaxed. They got to see the inside of our home. They got to see our dynamics, like our relationship really play out. And they obviously got to ask so many questions about my personal health history, other pregnancies that are in my family. They asked about our relationship, how we met, how long we've been together, things that we love, just questions that I don't think a lot of OBGYNs and hospital-based care providers, not only are they not asking these things, but they just don't have the time to intimately get to know their clients so well. It felt so good. The other people that we have added to our team is we have hired a birth photographer, and I have hired my own doula team. So yes, the same doulas that I trust to go to your birth, that I have trained. I know their education. I know they are the best and most well-prepared doulas in the world. I also am super lucky to have them standing by my side on my big day as well. So that has been super fun to see our birth team come together and be completed. 2 other additional people that I just previously mentioned that are also on my birth team. Obviously, my chiropractor, which I talked a lot about in the first trimester episode, but also I started to see a functional movement therapist because I was worried about diastasis recti, which I do in fact have. But throughout the second trimester, we have really been able to work so much on improving that. And now I can close the gap of that diastasis recti to properly engage my ab muscles to do exercises instead of furthering that gap. Now, if you are looking down at your belly and you're like, I have a gap and should I be concerned about it? Here's what I'll say. Your baby has to go somewhere. So your ab muscles are going to expand. It is just normal. It's very natural. Diastasis recti happens to almost every single pregnant woman. However, what you do want to be mindful of is that you know how to engage those ab muscles so that you're not making it worse when you do things like sit down, get up, get out of bed, get into bed, exercise, pick up things, especially if you have other children. The other person is my PFPT. You know, I used to see a PFPT that was in a state over because I had seen her for 4 years, and Unfortunately, just making the drive for 2 to 2.5 hours to her to see her, and then 2 to 2.5 hours back just did not work in pregnancy. I just can't be seated in a car for that long all in one day. So I switched to someone who was closer to my home, and I absolutely love her as well. Not only have we been working on the ab muscles and the diastasis recti as well, but she's been helping me understand the tightness in my hips and getting my pelvic floor ready for birth. So we started that during this trimester as well. Now, one thing that you know is super important to me is giving you guys evidence-based information. I want all of the education that I provide to you to be data-driven and backed up with science. But one thing that you know that I'm the queen of saying is just because something is evidence-based doesn't make you obligated to choose it. And, well, as it would be in true HeHe fashion, I have chosen to do two things that are not necessarily evidence-based for me as a person, but I'm still choosing to make these decisions. The first one is I've chosen to wear a CGM at the beginning of my second trimester. So when I was around 14, 15 weeks pregnant, 16, 17 weeks on paper, I decided to wear a CGM for about 10 days. I wanted to make sure that not only was my blood sugar good and stable during the day, but was I eating the right foods? Was I eating frequently enough? Essentially, I wanted to have confirmation that my diet and exercise routine and my lifestyle was good for a stable blood sugar. And while for the most part it was, I also learned that I was not getting in enough protein. So throughout the second trimester, I have really hammered down and focused on my protein consumption, hence the protein powder, but also eating meat and protein-rich foods at every single meal, plus focusing on the snacks that I get in every day, making sure that they also are protein heavy. The other quote-unquote non-evidence-based decision I have made in this pregnancy is to start baby aspirin. Now, I am a first-time mom, and that is my only risk factor. I don't have any other risk factors that would be an indicator that I should be on baby aspirin. However, I had this intuitive nudge to reach out to my healthcare team, and I consulted some other healthcare professionals that are in my life that I trust deeply and dearly, and we decided that it was in fact a good idea. Not for any other reason than it didn't have any downsides and it only had positives. So I did decide to implement 81 milligrams of aspirin every night at bed. Now, admittedly, there are, of course, some nights that I forget, but I do try and be really routine with taking this baby aspirin, and I decided to do it to help stave off things like hypertension and preeclampsia, which it is a very evidence-based way to do both of those. However, one thing that you do need to know is that it works best and is most effective if it is started by week 16. So I did start this at week 15 of pregnancy. These are two things too that I did not ask permission for. So I didn't bring this to my care team and say, can I run a CGM? I literally just ordered one online. It was a decision I felt very informed about. I felt really confident doing, and I knew that I wanted that data. I went with the Hello Lingo CGM. You don't need a prescription. I didn't put it through my insurance, and it's only $50, which I felt was really accessible. And once you order it, it's to your house in just a couple of days. I also put up a video of my experience applying it and using it on social media. On my Instagram at Tranquility by HeHe, I actually have a whole highlight about using the CGM that you can check out. I was not able to get a code from HelloLingo, but it's just hellolingo.com. And again, you don't need a prescription. You can order it yourself. I found that it was super easy to use. It was absolutely painless to apply and put on, and it did not disrupt any of my lifestyle. I was still able to wear all of my clothes. I used a backpack, taking it on and off. I swam, I showered, I slept, I worked out, I saunaed, all with my Lingo CGM on, which is continuous glucose monitoring. The other thing is I didn't ask permission to start the aspirin. I simply consulted with my healthcare team to get their opinion. I wanted to know, did they think it was a good idea? Did they think it was a bad idea? I understood that I didn't have any risk factors. So what was their opinion? But there was at no point where I said, can I do this? My questions revolved more around, what is your opinion around this? Because I don't have any risk factors, do you see this being harmful to me or my babies? What are baby, that's a singular baby. What are the risk and benefits of me choosing to implement aspirin in my pregnancy, even though I don't have risk factors that would indicate I might need it? So be sure that you are super clear. You don't need anyone's permission to do something in pregnancy. You're not asking can or can't I. You're simply asking for their educated clinical recommendation. And then I want you to feel informed and empowered to make decisions for yourself, whether those decisions are intuitively nudged or they are backed by the data. Now, the one thing that everybody knows about the second trimester, and I think is probably one of the most fun things about pregnancy or in pregnancy, is that anatomy scan. And boy, oh boy, was it so fun. So we did our anatomy scan, and I have to be honest, it took longer than I thought, and we saw way more than I was expecting. You can see things like their nasal cavity, their little face structure, their fingers and their toes, the chambers of their heart, the hemispheres of their brain. You can see their chest rising as they breathe. You can see them moving around in your body. It was absolutely wild. Because Mr. HeHe is in healthcare as well, he was so interested in things like the spine and having close-ups of the organs. So it was just a really, really fun experience. Now, we are keeping baby Sagi's gender secret. So we're not finding out whether we are having a boy or a girl before birth. So when the tech was scanning us, she said, like, I'm going to do everything except the sex organs and the genitalia. But when the OBGYN comes in, she is going to want to check that. So the OBGYN came in and she said, I do want to check the genitalia and just make sure that all the sex organs are there. So do you guys want to close your eyes and just let me check? And so that's what we decided to do. We held hands and we covered our eyes, and it was just a really special moment. And I could feel her obviously scanning my belly, and she just said, yep, everything looks great. Like, your baby is growing beautifully. Keep going. We'll see you guys next time. And it was just so fun. Now, in the first trimester episode, I shared with you that when we had our scan, I did talk to our tech about not holding the Doppler to my belly for longer increments than 30 seconds at a time. And if she wasn't able to get what she needed in those 30-second increments, I wanted her to remove the Doppler wand from my belly, give us a little bit, and then we could go back in and do it again. I did that same thing this time. I just asked her to be very mindful for how long she held that wand to my belly. And I will say, every time that we get a scan, I've only had two. I had the one in the first trimester, and I had this one at the anatomy scan. I don't think our baby likes it very much. Not only do they move away from it really quickly and abruptly, but they actually have been pretty ornery, and they've been kind of difficult to scan. So it makes me feel good that intuitively I kind of knew to ask them to limit the amount of time that they use the Doppler. And it makes me feel even more confident in not having any unnecessary additional scans. So as of right now, at the end of our second trimester, we will not be having any more ultrasounds or any more scans because they just aren't evidence-based. We shouldn't be using ultrasound scans to evaluate the position of your baby, i.e., let's see if your baby is head down, or to evaluate the size of your baby. Neither one of those are accurate. So if you want to see if your baby is head down, then your provider can actually palpate your belly. And I want to clarify what I just said. It's accurate to use ultrasound to see if your baby is head down, but it's not evidence-based, and it's certainly not the only way. So you, as the mom, should be able to feel if your baby is head down or not, but any skilled provider should be able to palpate your belly and also determine whether your baby is head down or not. You don't need ultrasound. Now, what is not accurate is trying to evaluate a baby's size and weight from that, right? So any 38, 36 week ultrasound where, it might be used to say, oh, this baby's going to be really big, or your baby's trending on the bigger side. We know that that is not evidence-based, and we know that those ultrasounds can be off quite a bit, up to 1 to 2 pounds on either side, which means if you have a baby that's trending at 9 pounds, that baby very well might come out 7 pounds. Now, on the opposite end of that spectrum, they may come out at 11 pounds, which we know is very unlikely. Most babies, the average size baby is between 7 and 8 pounds at birth. So if you decide that you don't want to have additional ultrasound scans, which I have, then just know that is a very reasonable thing for you to decide in your pregnancy. Plus, one other really cool fact that I learned many years ago and I have clung to for life is, did you know that maternal estimation of a baby's weight is actually the most accurate? Yeah, asking that mom, like, well, how much do you think your baby weighs? They are the most spot on when it comes to estimating fetal weight. It must probably have something to do with, well, she's carrying that baby, so she probably has a good idea of what they weigh. One other really cool thing about our baby's anatomy/development that we got to experience in this trimester is around 21 weeks pregnant, 23 on paper, we experienced the hiccups, and it was the cutest little thing. You could see these little hops or pops in my belly, and they were all in the same spot, and it was just this quick little pop in my belly. It was so cute, and it felt very different than their rolls or their jabs or their big body movements, their kicks and their flutters. It was very clearly hiccups. The other thing that I was so shocked about is I actually felt our baby do a big body turn. So one night when I was sleeping around midnight, my belly did this big woof feeling, and it made me nauseous. And I thought, oh my God, what the heck was that? That was very uncomfortable. It wasn't painful, but I did start to sweat, and I did have that nausea start, and I thought, wow, what in the world was that? But I was able to go to sleep, so I went on to bed, and about 3.5 hours later at 3:30 a.m., I felt another really huge woof. And this time, not only did I start sweating and have nausea, but I projectile vomited. I almost did not make it to the bathroom in time. But I am almost positive that that was our baby trying to either get head down or they were breech and they went head down. I don't know why there were two really big whoops. I don't know if the first one was an attempt and the second one they were successful, or if they were head down and the first one they turned breech and then the second one they realized, uh-oh, not this way, and they turned back head down. I have no idea. Again, it wasn't painful, but it was quite uncomfortable. It did make me sweat. The first time gave me a lot of nausea, and the second time I actually threw up. So not a super pleasant experience, but actually one that was pretty cool to experience. I mean, I was like, wow, that is our baby literally moving their whole body inside of my body. It was absolutely just completely fascinating. And I want to say, like, I'm glad I experienced it. I know a lot of people out there are like, you're glad you threw up. And it's like, no, I'm not necessarily glad that it brought, sweats and nausea on, but it was a really cool experience, just like a really physiological experience to see how smart our baby was and to see that they were capable of moving their entire body like that. It was just, I don't know. I thought it was really, really cool. Another really cool thing that I started to experience in this trimester is my boobs are leaking colostrum, which is really fun. And if you don't know about colostrum, it is that first version of milk in your breast. I actually sit down with IBCLC Gina Motse in episode 239 of the Birth Launch podcast to talk all about colostrum and what you need to know about colostrum production. But in general, it is this really early milk. It is thick and sticky, and it's actually not white. It's more of a yellow or a golden color. And when you make colostrum in pregnancy, not only is it normal and expected, but it's not an indicator of your actual milk supply postpartum. So if you're sitting there thinking like, wait a minute, I haven't started to make colostrum, that's okay. Not everybody does, but it is a common experience. So if you are experiencing leaky boobs in pregnancy, know that that is very normal as well. For me, this started at 22 weeks pregnant, 24 on paper, and it has been really fun. I actually tasted it, and it tastes like the milk after you get done eating really sweet cereal. So it was like just super, super sweet, and oh my gosh, it's just really cool. I love to have these indicators that my body is working as expected. And I don't know, it was cool when I found that my body could do that. I was absolutely blown away. And I actually have to fight the urge to hand express to get that colostrum out, which you don't want to do in pregnancy beyond, or before you get to term. So if you are before 37 or 38 weeks, we don't want to do any sort of hand expression because that can bring on contractions. And if you do it too early, you do run the risk of sending yourself into preterm labor, which obviously would not be good. I did have a little bout of heartburn during this trimester, but I feel really lucky that it didn't stick around. It was just a one-time event. I had pizza that had jalapenos on it. Yum. And also thanks to this baby craving that, but it didn't really settle with my body very well. Shortly after eating that pizza, I felt like lava was in fact coming right up my esophagus, and it was super uncomfortable. I didn't do anything about it except sit up. I just propped myself up. It wasn't bad enough that I thought I needed to seek out any sort of remedy or take any sort of medication from it, which I know a lot of people do experience really bad heartburn where you do need some medication or you need some sort of remedy. I didn't, and I feel really happy that it hasn't come back, but I'll tell you what, I will not be eating jalapenos anymore in pregnancy because that was just totally not fun. One other thing that was not fun for me in this trimester is I did think that I had a UTI at around 25 weeks pregnant, 27 on paper, and I was really confused. This was one of the most confusing things that I have encountered thus far in pregnancy. Here are my symptoms. From my belly button to my pubic bone, it was really sore. It wasn't tender when you touched it. It just felt like sore muscles. It felt like I had really worked out those muscles a ton, but I didn't have foul-smelling urine. I was not going to the bathroom bathroom often, and I wasn't having urine retention, meaning that when I went to the bathroom, I was only, peeing small amounts. There was no cloudiness in my urine, no foaminess in my urine. I wasn't having radiating pain. I was not having any back pain or, contractions. I had no symptoms of a UTI other than that soreness from my belly button to my pubic bone. And so I started to think, I wonder if I have what we call, and is common in pregnancy, an asymptomatic UTI. And I know there's so many of you out there listening being like, yep, I had that. I knew it was a thing. And so I actually ordered some at-home test strips and they came out negative. And so I started to wonder, I wonder if I have an internal infection. So I called my home birth midwife and we went through all the symptoms and she said, it doesn't really sound like a UTI. What does your gut tell you? And I said, my gut tells me it's not a UTI, but I was starting to get kind of nervous because I didn't know what else it was. And because I couldn't kind of put my finger on what the answer was, I started to get nervous that I had an internal infection or I had kind of an asymptomatic UTI. And she said, are you sure it's not round ligament pain? And I was like, no, I'm not sure. I've never been pregnant before. I don't know what round ligament pain is like. And she said, it sounds a lot like round ligament pain. Are you interested in doing something kind of proactive in case it is a UTI? I said yes. We started me on cranberry pills and D-mannose pills. And then I decided to see my chiropractor. And when I told my chiropractor about what I was experiencing, immediately she said, I think this might be round ligament pain. Let me check your round ligaments. And the minute she put her fingers on my round ligament, she said, absolutely, this is round ligament pain. So I found that just so funny that it ended up being muscular when the only thing I could really come up with was that it might have been a UTI. But let me tell you what, one adjustment from the chiropractor adjusting my round ligaments, and I had so much mobility back. The soreness completely went away. I mean, it felt like some magical miracle solution. And that was when I decided, okay, I am going to definitely prioritize getting into the chiropractor twice a week at least. And then sometime next sometime next trimester, in the third trimester, I am actually probably going to prioritize getting there 3 times a week just to make sure that my hips are even, my pelvic region is balanced, and to keep on top of things like the muscles in my lower and mid back, plus these round ligament pains, and to just, I guess, maintenance just feels really good to me at this point. My body is really aligned from the work that I have been doing with the functional movement therapist, the PFPT, and the chiropractor up until this point, plus all of the strength and endurance training I've been doing. So I think the maintenance is really what we will focus on in that third trimester so that all the hard work I have been doing and all the progress I have made can be kept up. Finally, something that you guys are always asking about are what classes am I taking to prepare for birth? Well, first of all, Mr. HeHe and I are both already certified in CPR. So if you are not, I highly recommend you taking a CPR class. I think every single parent, grandparent, caregiver, nanny, anybody who is going to be in charge of watching or caring for your child should be CPR certified. And it's too late to do it when your baby gets here, right? It's too late to do it after an emergency happens. So do it in pregnancy. Go ahead and get those skills under your belt. That way, if, God forbid, you run into a situation where you need those skills, you already have them. So that's my first thing. Take a CPR class. We did not have to take a CPR class because we're already certified, but I highly recommend that you do if you are not already CPR certified. The other thing that we're taking is an NRP class. This is newborn resuscitation. Now, neither one of us necessarily will need to perform newborn resuscitation on our baby because we will have midwives with us, but this is two-pronged. Not only is Mr. HeHe an EMT, so this is a course that he can be certified in and will, only make him a better rescuer when it comes to his EMT skills. But on the off chance that our baby comes faster than what our midwives can get to us, we want to make sure that we do have the skills if, God forbid, anything were to happen and our baby needed resuscitation. Now, in addition to that, we are going to brush up on free birth, not because we are planning to free birth, but because if we have a precipitous labor and our baby comes faster than what our midwives can get to us, we want to make sure that we are uber prepared for how to birth this baby if it is just us, which is not our plan. But after being a doula for 10 years, I know that you really cannot plan birth and that you should be prepared for both the expected and the unexpected. Two other courses that we're taking is a breech birth course, just in case this baby is breech at the time of birth. Not only do I want us to be prepared, but it was something that I really held as a priority when we interviewed midwives, and I was sure to not only birth at a hospital facility to establish care with our hospital-based midwives that were comfortable with breech, but also to hire a home birth midwife that was comfortable with breech, because I knew that I did not want a breech baby to risk me out of a home birth and instead require me to have a hospital birth, or worse, have to have a forced C-section. So not only will Mr. HeHe and I be prepared for breech birth, our hospital-based midwife team is trained and offers breech birth, and so does our home birth team. Now, to no surprise, the final thing, and probably the thing that we're doing the most and spending the most time in, is obviously the birth lounge. It is comprehensive childbirth education, so why would I not take it? I wanted to refresh myself on all of the data. It also is really different going through it as a consumer than it is teaching you guys about these things. Plus, it's been really special for Mr. HeHe and I to sit down and take the birth lounge course together. It's not only time for us to discuss our plans and our goals and each of our desires, but it's just a really fun time for us to carve out together time and to bond as we plan for our baby. Lastly, I have been going through the secret sauce to pushing, because the secret sauce to pushing course teaches you how to push not only with the right muscles and effectively and efficiently, but for less than 30 minutes and reduce your risk of tearing drastically. So those are the courses that we are doing in order to prepare for this baby. I joked at the beginning of the episode that we really haven't done that much, and I still have a lot to do on our to-do list. So a couple of things that we are still working on and that I'm going to really take on in the third trimester is making our birth plan and actually putting it down on paper so that we can have it on our refrigerator, so that we can share it with our home birth midwife team. We can share it with our hospital midwife team. We're also going to make a couple of other plans. So we'll make a postpartum plan, we'll make a feeding plan, we'll make a transfer plan, and we're going to be making a catastrophe plan, which stick around for a future episode with Kaylee Summers, which you may know as the Birth Trauma Mama. We're actually going to talk about what a catastrophe plan is and why you might consider making one for your birth as well. I'm also going to start our baby registry. We're going to get a baby shower on the calendar, and we've got some construction to be done at our house so that we can actually make space to welcome this little baby. In addition to that, I'm going to start working on our nursery and getting the baby gear that we need. And then finally, in the third trimester, I obviously have the GDM test coming up, which is the gestational diabetes test. If you don't follow me on social media, be sure to do that, because I'm going to be taking you along this entire journey. I'm going to be sharing about our birth plan and our registry and the construction and the GDM testing and making our nursery, because, well, I love you so much. I want you to be part of this journey, and you guys have made me feel so loved on this journey so far, and it's just really been a joy to share this experience and this era of life with with you guys. All right, y'all. That is the second trimester. It was jam-packed with a bunch of firsts and some kind of uncomfortable things and a lot of really exciting things and some milestones, some really fun bonding for Mr. HeHe and I. And as we wrap up the second trimester and head into the third trimester, I genuinely am getting more and more excited every single day to meet baby Saggy, and I just can't wait. It's just been so much fun to be pregnant. I love being pregnant. I thought being pregnant in the summer might be a little hard, and as I shared in our first trimester episode, I was pretty sad to have a winter baby, but as we get nearer and nearer to our due date, I'm growing increasingly more excited to have a winter baby. Plus, all of our really close friends have had babies this year as well. And I'm going to wrap up that friend group. I'm the caboose. We're having the last baby of the year. And oh my gosh, I'm sure you can hear me smiling ear to ear. It's been so much fun to watch our friends transition to being parents. And I'm really, really excited to not only join that club, but also to raise our babies together. Oh my God, I love it so much. All right, you guys. This has been so much fun. Thanks for hanging out with me. As always, I genuinely love hanging out with y'all. I'll see you in the next episode. Be sure to follow me on social media. You can find me at Tranquility by HeHe or at the.birth.lounge. Don't forget that the price is raising for the Birth Lounge membership on September 1. So if you're looking for that unbiased, non-judgmental, comprehensive childbirth education that's not only going to teach you what your options are, but also how to actually have them met within the hospital system. I need to teach you how to navigate the hospital system, because just knowing what your options are isn't really enough, especially when your hospital staff is trained to come in and have you follow the hospital protocol and have you follow that hospital policy. You really need to know, how do you advocate for yourself? How do you decline things that don't feel good to you? And how do you ask for things that are alternatives that do feel better to you? And I teach you all of that in the Birth Lounge. So don't wait. You've got just a little bit longer to join before the price goes up on September 1, and I will see you next time. Until then, head to your app store and download the Birth Lounge app for evidence-based childbirth education and data-driven postpartum support delivered straight to your phone. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I love hanging out with you, and it is an honor to be your go-to gal when it comes to preparing for your baby. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please leave a 5-star review and tell others why they should be listening to the Birth Lounge podcast too. You deserve to have a birth that you love with a provider that values your autonomy and respects informed consent without all the trauma that you so commonly hear about on social media. New episodes air every Wednesday and Friday. Hit that follow button so you never miss an episode. I'm HeHe, and this is the Birth Lounge Podcast.